So today we will be creating this really fun project. It is a Christmas themed elf on a shelf costume for our pets. It's really easy to make. I will be separating this tutorial in just English and another one in just Spanish because I need to explain fully on the measurement portion of it. And as you can see, I've already made one for my Maximus the Great, and he looks really cute in it. So let's get started. And the materials we'll be using today is going to be green, red, black, and white yarn. I'm also going to be using gold metallic thread. I'll be using 2 stitch markers, 2 buttons, 2 bells. You want to make sure that the bells have an opening so you can tie. I'll be using also a yarn needle, a tape measurement. You'll need a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, a pair of scissors, and I'll be using my 5.0 millimeter hook. You can't really see it anymore, but I know it's my 5.0 millimeter hook. And now let's get started. So before we start our tutorial, I wanted to explain how I took the measurements for Max. My measurements are in inches. So I took them with my measuring tape. Max is a Shih Tzu, so they have a lot of hair. You want to be mindful of your pet for that as well. If they have a lot of hair, if they don't, so you can give them a little bit of leeway when you're taking your measurements. So the first thing that I measured was Max's neck. You'll see this half circle here. But I did measure it like a collar. So I did the entire, like all the way around their neck. And it gave me 12 inches. Then I went along and I measured from shoulder to shoulder, and it gave me 7 inches. Remember, all these measurements are for my Max. So I want to show you how I measured my pet in order for you to be able to measure yours. And that way you can make the size pertaining to your pet. Then I went along and I measured from the shoulder area all the way down to the tail, which is the back length, and it gave me around 14 inches and a half. And around the belly area, once again, I did the same thing like a collar type of measurement. It gave me 15 inches. Then I went to the back legs, and in length, it gave me 9 inches, and in width, it gave me 4 inches. For the width, I did once again with my measuring tape. I put it around his leg. That way I knew. So just remember, you want to take your measurements first. And also something very important is when you're doing your project, you want to remember that a lot of times yarn, depending on what type of material you're using, it'll stretch, or if you wash it and dry it in the dryer, it can actually shrink. So you want to have that into consideration in your measurements as well. That way you're aware of that throughout the project. And now let's get started. So we're going to start off with our red yarn. Remember, we are going to be working using our measurements. So what I mean by this is that we're going to start with chains. So you want to do a slip knot. But instead of counting how many chains we're going to start off, we're going to do how many chains we need in order to get the measurement that we took from the neck. So if y'all remember, I took, it was 12 inches for my Shih Tzu's neck all the way around. So I'm going to do enough chains for 12 inches. So once I get to my 12 inches, then we'll come back. And remember, in order to do a chain, you want to yarn over and pull through, just like this. So now I have 2 chains. And I'm going to continue to do chains until I have my 12 inches. And then we'll come back and start on our first row. So I have a total of 45 chains. I'm going to take my measuring tape. I'll put it on the top, and then I'll just measure to make sure that I have all the chains I need for 12 inches. So I actually have, if we look at it here, it's exactly 12 inches. So I'll stop at 45 chains. And we will be working in double crochets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 chains. And on this 4th chain from the hook, I'm going to start my first double crochet. So remember, I'm going to go back so y'all can see how to do a double crochet if you're a beginner. So you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook in that 4th chain, yarn over, pull through. You should have the 3 loops, yarn over, pull through your first 2, and yarn. You should have now 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through the last 2. And the first chains we have here are going to count as a double crochet, and then we have our second. So we're just going to continue to do this until we get to the end of our chain row. Once we get to the end, we'll come back. Just remember that if you don't have 45 chains, you have more, you have less. That is fine, just because not every dog is the same. So I've arrived at the end of my row, as you can see here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to chain 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to turn our work. When you turn your work, you're going to continue to do double crochets all the way till the end. But I wanted to stop here because this is going to be your neck area. Or the collar area. So for me, I am going, if I measure right now, it's just a little bit under an inch if we look at it. And I want mine to be a little under 2 inches. And I wanted to point that out because once again, it depends for your dog how thick you want it, but you want to make sure that this collar portion is going to go from the neck to the before the shoulder area. So for me, it's almost 2 inches. So I know it's going to be a total of 3 rows. So I have 1 row and I'm going to do 2 more rows. So you want to just continue to do your rows depending on how many inches or centimeters you need in order to arrive to the shoulder area of your pet. So let me go back here really quick for beginners. So when you start a new row, you have your chain, and then you turn your work and you do your double crochet in the space here. Just like I showed y'all previously. And you'll just continue to do double crochets until you get to the end. And then when you get to the end, you just turn your work again. So I'm going to continue to do this row, and then I'll do my 3rd row and we'll come back. So I've arrived at my last stitch of my 3rd row, and I'm just going to fasten off. So I'm going to do 1 chain and pull, and we've done our neck area. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so y'all can see better. Let's see. Okay, so if y'all remember, I had said earlier that from shoulder to shoulder, my max's measurement was 7 inches. So we're not going to be counting stitches really for this project. It's more going to be measurements. But on this part, I am going to count stitches because we're going to be using our stitch marker. So for 7 inches, what I am seeing right in the middle is around like 10 stitches from right to left, and then 10 stitches from left to right. Let me make sure. So we have so I'm going to put it on this 11th stitch. And I'm going to put it on this 10th stitch. Now let's measure. Yeah, and it's just a little bit more than 7 inches, which is fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach our yarn in your stitch marker. So you'll insert your hook, pull through, and I am going to do a knot. And I'll be hiding this thread while I crochet. So if y'all remember what I told you, shoulder to shoulder, it gave me up to almost a little bit more than 7 inches, but not quite 8. So that's why I decided to do 11 stitches on one side, 10 stitches on another. So we're going to do 3 chains. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And in the same stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet. And I'm going to continue to do double crochets until I get to my next stitch marker. And when I get to my next stitch marker, I'm also going to do 2 double crochets. And I've arrived at my last stitch where my stitch marker is, and I'm going to do 2 double crochets to increase. Why are we increasing at the beginning and at the end? Is because when you measured shoulder to shoulder, it gave you one amount, but we then have the back and we have the width of the costume. So you have to increase at the beginning and at the end of the rows. I'm just going to increase in 3 rounds because that will give me my width of my, for my max. So I did increase and increase. Now I'm gonna do 3 chains. I'm going to turn my work, double crochet in the same stitch, and continue to double crochet until the end. But in the last stitch, I'm going to be once again increasing. So once I get to the end, we'll come back. That way you can see the effect it makes when you increase at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so I'm here almost at the end. And remember, you're gonna increase in that chain. So you're gonna do 2 double crochets in that 3rd chain. So we have one, and we're going to do one more. And if you look at your work, it's going to start going upward, okay? That's why we want to increase. And now I'm just going to increase in this last row, which I'm going to do 3 chains. I'm going to turn. I'm going to do another double crochet, and then when I get to the end, again, 2 double crochets. And then once I've done that, we'll come back for the remaining rows. Remember, it's possible that you'll have to increase more if you have a pet that is bigger. So that's what you want to be aware of. So I've increased in 5 rounds and I've ended with 33 stitches. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue to do rounds in red, but I am not going to increase any longer. This is sufficient for my measurement on increasing. So since I have 5 rows, I'm going to do 5 more rows without increasing, and then do a color change. So what we'll do now is we'll do a chain of 3, we'll turn our work, and this is once again, once you get to stop on your increasing, because depending on your measurement, you'll know when to stop. So once we turn our work, we're not going to increase any longer, so I'm going to do my first double crochet in the next stitch. And I'm just going to continue to do double crochets all the way across. And like I said, I'll come back when I've done my 5 rows. If you're not very sure if you're increasing or not, when you get to the last row that you're increasing, you want to count your stitches, and the number of stitches that you get in that row, all your next rows, and this is until the end actually, because we're going to do 2 color changes, they're going to be the same amount of stitches for the remaining rows there. And so if you feel more comfortable, what you can do is you can count stitches to make sure that accidentally you're not increasing at the beginning or at the end, because usually when we do our chains, we do our first stitch in that first chain, but these chains are going to count as a double crochet at this point. So I'm just going to continue to do my rows. Once I've arrived to 5, we'll come back. So I've arrived at my last double crochet in red. So I'm going to do a color change. That's why I have my black close to me. I'll be doing a invisible color change, which I'll show y'all how to do now. So you want to take your hook and yarn over. I'm going to zoom in so y'all can see better. And then you want to insert your hook in the stitch, yarn over, pull through. You should have 3 loops. Now you want to yarn over once again and pull through the first 2. You want to grab your next color, which for this project should be your black. And now you're going to yarn over. You're going to yarn over your black and pull through. And you've done an invisible color change. I like to pull my previous color. That way you can't really see it. So now I'm just going to do 3 chains, 2, 3, because I'm going to continue to do rows of double crochet. But I'm also going to do a double knot here with my 2 colors to secure it. And then I'll just be doing my stitches and hiding them, hiding these two loose ends at the same time. So what I am going to do now is I'm going to do 3 rows in black, double crochet. This is going to be for my measurements. So remember, the black portion is going to be the belt. And you want to make sure that the rows that you are going to create for the belt are not many rows, just because a belt tends to be, you know, not that really thick. And also because it's going to depend on the measurement you took for the full back. So if y'all remember at the beginning, I said the full back of my max was between 13 to 14 inches. That's before the tail. So even though we're not counting stitches really, you should be aware of your rows. So I'm just gonna do 3. That can be different for you. Once I've done my 3 rows, we'll come back because we have to change colors once again. And then we'll continue with the bottom portion. So I've arrived at my last double crochet of my 3rd round in black. And now I'm going to do another color change, and I'm going to change it to my green. So like I showed y'all earlier, you're gonna yarn over, insert your hook in that 3rd chain. Yarn over the black, yarn over the black again, and pull through the first 2 loops. And now you're going to pull your green through the 2 loops that are left. Okay, perfect. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do 5 rows. Once again, double crochet in a green. This is going to depend on the length of the back of your pet. So, like I've stated throughout the entire tutorial, not every time we're going to be matching in rows because not every pet or fur baby has the same measurements. So why I'm stopping on row 5 is because I need to leave around, I would say, 1.5 inches to the tail. So I'm going to leave that space of 1.5 inches before the tail because I'm going again to do color changes. So we're just going to continue now with the green. If you've arrived here, doing double crochets in each stitch and then turning your work. And then once I've arrived at that 5th round, we'll come back. Remember, if yours is more or less, what you can do is you can continue to measure just like this. So if we look at mine, I'm already at 9 inches. So my 5 rows will probably give me those 12 inches that I want here if we look at it. That's how you want to get an idea on how many rows you have to do. So I'm just going to continue here and then we'll come back for the last 2 rows on the back. And then we're almost done with our project. So I've arrived at my 7th round of gray. I'm at my last double crochet here. And as you can see, I have my red close by because we're going to be doing a color change once again. Okay. And like we've been doing previously, the color changes are going to be invisible color changes. But before I continue with the next round, I wanted to show y'all. So if we measure all the way from the top to this green, it is 12 inches and a half. So you want to make sure that you're leaving around an inch more at the end before the tail. And this is because we're going to do 2 more rounds. So you don't want to do the entire part just green. So I wanted to show y'all that. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to do my next row in red. Of double crochets. Remember, if you're doing your color change this way, you want to tie it and then just hide it when you're working. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the entire row in red, and then we'll come back. Remember, you are not increasing, and the chains serve as a double crochet. So that's very important, so you don't accidentally increase. Okay, so I'm going to continue here, and then we come back for our next color change. And I've arrived here at the end of this row, and I have my white close by because I am going to be doing a color change in my last stitch. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this row in white, and it's just going to be one row. So let me cut this red out. You want to tie once again. And just continue this row in white. So once I get to the end of my row, we'll come back so we can start with the legs of the costume. So I've arrived here at my last double crochet. I have my stitch markers closed and also my red because we will be doing a color change. So I'm going to do the invisible color change once again. And I am going to stop right here. So what I am going to do now, because we will be creating the legs, is you want to see how many stitches you have across. Remember, it is also going to depend on your measurements. I already know my measurements and my stitches. I have 33 stitches, and across I have 10 inches. So what I'm going to do is I am going to count 12 stitches from right to left and 12 stitches from left to right. And I'll put my stitch marker on number 12. So we have 1, and this is number 12. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm sorry, y'all. And this is my 12. And how did I come up with that is because I need the middle portion to measure what the width of my Max's tail is, as in the back part where the tail starts, because I want to leave that free. So I should have, we have here 10 stitches that I am going to leave free. This may be different for you depending on your pet. So now what I'm going to do is, with my red, I'm going to start off 3 chains. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to turn our work. I'm going to cut off my white, but I'm going to leave my white nearby. You want to secure your 2 loose ends, as we've been doing for our color changes. And now I'm just going to do double crochets until I get to my stitch. So it should be 12 double crochets. Remember that we are considering the 3 chains as a double crochet. That way we do not increase. So this would be 2. And now I'm going to do my last double crochet in that stitch. But it will be, once again, a color change. So I'm going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm going to once again grab my white. We're going to start with 3 chains and turn your work. So we're going to do this a total of 4 rounds. So it should be 2 white rounds, 2 red rounds, but alternating them. Once I've done on this side, because we will be working only on this side right now, once I've done my 4 rounds, we'll come back to then continue with this leg. So I've arrived at my last row, number 4 with white, and I'm gonna do my last double crochet once again with a color change. And now what you need, what you're going to need to do is chains. So the chains are going to depend on how many stitches or how many double crochets you have. So I have a total of 12, so I'm going to do 12 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 12. And I am going to the 3rd chain from the first set of chains, and I'm going to do a slip stitch. Okay, and this is going to create our hole, you can see it here, for the leg. And I'm only doing this for the back legs, because if you notice, I didn't do any stockings for the front legs. So to secure it, I'm gonna go right in where we did the color change of the previous row, and I'm going to do a single crochet. and we've secured it. Now I'm going to do 3 chains because we've been working in double crochets. I'm going to turn my work. And you're going to look for the chains that we've created. Let me see if I can focus so y'all can see better. Right here. And we're just going to do 1 double crochet in each chain. Until we get to the end. I've done my last double crochet, and I'm going to secure this side as well with a single crochet. Okay, and we've created, see how that attaches it? Perfect. So you have the option to leave just like this. What I am going to do is I'm going to do 1 more round. I want to attach the white. It'll be the same thing that we've been doing in color changes. The only difference is that we start off here with a single crochet. So I'm going to attach it here, do my 3 chains, 2 and 3. I'm going to turn my work, and remember we should be working, I'm sorry y'all, remember we should be working on the top part. And we'll just continue to do just 1 row. Of double crochet. Just like this. And once I finish my row, then we'll come back. And I've arrived at the end. Okay. I'm gonna these I'll be weaving in. But as you can see, this is how it should look like, depending on which way you're going to fold it. But this is how it's going to look like, and I'm going to stop here. I am going to do 1 chain. I'm going to cut and fasten off. So now what you want to do is on the other side, where we put our stitch marker, right here, you want to attach your red yarn, just like we did on this side, and you're just going to repeat. It'll be very simple. You're going to do your stitches attach until you get to your stitch marker, color change, and continue until you have your other leg. I'm going to do my other leg now, and then we'll come back to give it the final touches, and we'll be done. So I've finished the body of the suit, and now what we're going to do is create 2 of these triangles. I have one already made, and that's going to be to attach the bell. So what you want to do is you want to leave your suit or your costume close by, because we're going to need it in order to measure. So you're going to take your red yarn. You're going to start off with a slip knot. But when you do this slip knot, you want to leave a long piece of thread because we'll need that for the bell. So I'm going to go ahead here, do the slip knot. As you can see, I have a long piece of thread. And I'm going to start off with 3 chains. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 2 chains from the hook. So we have 1 single crochet here. And then now your second single crochet in the last chain. And this row can always be a little bit difficult when you're trying to do that last stitch. Okay, so now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and we're going to start increasing. So what we're going to do is in this first stitch we have here, we're going to do 2 single crochets. So we have 1 and 2. And in the next stitch right here, we're going to do 2 single crochets. So 1 and 2. And we have a total now of 4 single crochets. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and in this first stitch we have here, once again, 2 single crochets. So 1 and 2. 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So we have 2, 3, the next stitch 4, and in the last stitch 2 single crochets, which should give you 6. Now let's continue this in the next row. So chain 1, turn your work, 2 single crochets in the first, then a single crochet. So we have 3, 1 single crochet, 4, 5, 6, and in the last 2 single crochets. So 7 and 8. Let's repeat this once again. 2 single crochets in the first stitch after doing the chain and turning your work. And then 1 single crochet in the next 8 stitches. And then 2 single crochets in the last stitch. Okay. And you can go on measuring now if that's something that you're wanting to do. And what you would do is you would measure to the top. Let me see if y'all can see that. So that's very small, so we want to continue to increase. So that's how I'm going to determine how many rows of increase I'm going to be doing, is while I do them, I measure them while I go along. So once again, we're going to increase in the first stitch. So we have 2, 1 single crochet in each stitch, we have 10, now 2 single crochets again, and it should give us 12. Chain 1, 2 single crochets, and then single crochets until the stitch before the last. And I'm 2 single crochets in this last stitch. Now I'm going to measure once again. And I'm going to do let's see. One more increase. So I'll do one more row of increases. So 2, and 2 at the end, which makes 16. So this is where I'm going to stop increasing, but I am going to do 2 rows of single crochets all across. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across. So it's going to be 16 single crochets. Once again, let's repeat it. Okay. And I've arrived at the end of my triangle. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to cut off, but leaving a long strand. And pull. And now we have our 2 triangles right here. So now we're going to, we need to attach it, but we also need to do the pocket. So since we have our red out, you want to take your red, you want to do a slip knot, okay? And it depends how big you want the pocket to be. So for example, I'm going to start off with 10 chains. So we'll do 1, 10, and you want to measure right here. And that is, for me, that is perfect. So I will be working in double crochets. So we have 10. I'm going to add 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to do double crochet in the 1, 2, 3, 4 chain from the hook, okay? And we're going to continue to do double crochets till the end. We've arrived at the end. We'll do the double crochet. We're going to chain 3, so 1, 2, and 3. Turn your work and continue. Double crochet all the way across. And you're going to continue to do this until you have the height that you want for the pocket. So I'm just going to do this row that I'm doing now. And then I'm going to do one more row. So a total of only 3 rows for me. And I'll show you why. So if you can see here, it's already big enough. So I'm just going to do one more. Okay, and that is enough for me. So now I'm going to take my red, my white, I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to cut and pull, I'm going to add my white, just like this. And I'm really just going to do single crochet all the way around. So I did a chain 1. I'm going to look for the space while I hide my ends and single crochet. Just like this. And I'm going to do this all the way around the pocket. That way we give it a little border. And then once I've done all my border, we'll come back. And I've arrived here at the last single crochet. And I'm going to do a slip stitch in this first stitch. And now I'm going to do a chain to fasten off, but I will be leaving a lot of yarn because I am going to be using that to attach it. So now what we're going to do, remember this is the pocket. So we're going to take our costume or our sweater and a yarn needle. We're going to thread it through. And I'm just going to do one pocket, and I'm going to place it just on one side this way. So you're going to take your yarn needle with the yarn threaded already. I'm going to insert it in one of the stitches, pull it through, okay, and then I'm going to take it out of another stitch on the green portion. And you'll see it comes out of the back. And this is really what I'm going to do all the way around. Now I'm going to insert it from the back to the front. And I'm just going to continue. I am only going to be sewing in the two sides right here and the bottom. The top portion I'm going to leave open because it is a pocket. So I want to leave the upper portion open like a pocket. So once I've attached this, we'll come back to continue attaching the other parts, and then we'll be done. So I've finished attaching the pocket, and now I'm going to take my gold thread, if you have gold yarn or yellow yarn, and I'm using my yarn needle, and I have doubled my thread to make it a little bit thicker. So what you want to do is you want to insert your needle from the back to the front, right in the center of your costume. You want to take it out of the front, but when you are pulling, you want to leave an amount of thread loose. You want to make sure that you do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to insert on the top. And when you pull, do not pull very, very hard. That way you do not pull the loose thread that we need. Okay. Perfect. So once you've done it on the top portion, you're just going to go to the side, but from the back part, and you're going to insert your needle from the back to the front, slowly pull, and I always look at the back to make sure that it's not getting tangled, okay? And then I'm going to insert from front to back. Okay. Now I'm going to go where we started, and I'll insert it here, take it out of the front, and really now just going basically in reverse. Okay. Taking it out of the top where we inserted it initially. Remember to look at your back, make sure that it is not getting tangled or anything. And now you'll take, I'm going to cut this part off. Well, I'm going to insert here, just like this, just 2 threads. That way. Now I'm going to cut off. And I'm going to tie the 2. When you tie them, you don't want to pull hard because you'll be then pulling your threads on this side as well. So I'm going to do 2 knots. And now I'm going to cut. Okay, and we've done our buckle. Now we're going to continue with the triangles that we did earlier that are going to have the bells on them. I've already placed 1 bell on one of my triangles. So what I'm going to do is you're going to take your triangle and the piece of yarn that we left loose at the beginning, you're going to want to take it and insert it in the top portion of your bell. Okay, and you'll pull through this way. And then you take your yarn needle and you secure it. So what I do is I just start inserting it through stitches just like this. And I continue to do this, leaving a piece where I'm going to be able to tie back here. Okay, and then I'm going to insert right here. I'm not going to completely pull through. I'm going to leave a loop. And then a knot. And then we cut. Okay. Perfect. So now you're going to take your yarn needle once again and the yarn that we left loose on the top. You're going to look for that first row that we increased and we are going to centralize it. So you want to make sure that it fits right here. Okay, and we're just going to start sewing it on. So you'll insert your yarn needle, pull it, and just continue to sew it on. And you want to put this, you want to secure this, and you're going to do this with both of your triangles. I do it in every stitch. I go one time towards the front and one time backward. And that's how I attach it. And then I just do a knot at the end and we're done. So I'm going to continue here attaching my triangles, and then we'll come back to do the final touch, and we're all done. So now that we've attached our triangles, we're going to do the side straps with our black, and this is our last part. And what you want to do is you want to attach your black just like this and do a knot. And I'll be working in half double crochets. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull through, do a chain, and then do one more chain. And inside the spaces, I'll just be doing half double crochets, okay? And the length for this is going to depend once again on your pet. And you want to make sure that it is not tight around their belly area, but not loose either. Okay, so I'm going to do my half double crochets until I get here to the end. And then once you get to the end, you're just going to chain 2, 1, 2. You'll turn your work and you'll just continue doing rows until you think it is sufficient for the strap. Remember, you're going to do a strap, one on each side. And remember, the rows that you're wanting to make have to match the belly measurement that you took earlier. So once I've finished both of my straps, then we'll come back. So I've finished doing both of my straps here, as you can see. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I have my buttons close by. I'm going to add a button just on one side like this. So what I've done is, to use the same yarn, I just separated the yarn. And I'm going to put it on my button. And I'm going to pass it through. And then just tie it. And hopefully y'all can see this because black is so difficult. So I'm just going to add one button on one of the straps like this. And it should allow us to tie it. And I'm going to be hiding that. Or not tie it, but button it up. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to do the same thing on the neck. I'm going to add one button on one of the sides, and then we're done.
And I finished my costume for Maximus the Great. I hope all of you liked the tutorial. You can let me know in the comments if you were able to create it. Also remember to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you know every time I upload a new tutorial. I hope everybody has happy holidays. Enjoy with your family, including your fur babies. And thank you for watching.